You've got a floor that was a showpiece the day it went in. Warm, with that deep, glossy shine, the jewel of the house. And a few years later, you look at it in the light, and the shine is gone. It's dull. There's a cloudy haze over it, scratches everywhere, and gray traffic paths worn right where everyone walks. Almost everyone's reaction is one of two things. Attack it with a steam mop and a strong cleaner, or even the famous natural vinegar hack, or give up and call someone to sand it down and refinish it for a small fortune. And both are a mistake. Because steam and harsh chemicals don't save your floor, they wear it out faster. And sanding it literally strips away a layer of your own wood, something you can only do a handful of times in a floor's life before there's nothing left to sand. That's the mistake almost everybody makes, and it has nothing to do with the floor's age. It has to do with how you treat it. This is where the Japanese approach comes in, and when it comes to caring for wood, Japan has centuries of tradition. Think of the dark, mirror-like floors of old temples, the ones that gleam like glass. They've gone hundreds of years with no sanding and no refinishing. And that deep shine doesn't come from a machine or a harsh product. It comes from generations polishing them by hand, gently. Japan even has a practice for this, zokin gake, cleaning the floor by hand with a well-wrung cotton cloth. The same thing you see school children doing when they clean their own school, sliding a cloth across the floor. It's gentle care, with very little water and no chemicals. And it fits Motenai, the idea of caring for things so they last instead of destroying and replacing them. The key isn't bringing the shine back to a dead floor. The key is never letting it die. It all starts with one single idea, the idea that holds up the rest of this video. Here's what almost nobody understands. A floor doesn't wear out with age. You wear it out and you attack it. And there are two culprits, and you cause both of them without meaning to. The first is grit. The dust, dirt, and sand that come into the house and settle on the floor act like sandpaper under every footstep. Each step drags those tiny grains across the surface and scratches the finish with microscopic scratches until the floor loses its shine and looks hazy and gray right where you walk most. The second culprit is water and harsh chemicals. Excess water, steam, and strong cleaners seep into the seams, swell the wood, and attack the layer of finish, leaving it cloudy. And here's a detail almost nobody considers. Wood is a living material that moves with the humidity in the air. When the air is very humid, the wood absorbs moisture and swells. When it's very dry, it shrinks and gaps can open between the boards, or even cracks. So keeping the indoor humidity reasonably steady, without extremes, helps the boards move less and the seams stay tight. It's an invisible but real kind of care. And here's the technical key that explains everything. The shine you love so much isn't in the wood. It's in a thin, transparent layer of finish that protects it on top. As long as that layer is intact, the floor shines. The moment you wear it down with grit or attack it with steam and chemicals, the floor looks dead, even if the wood underneath is perfect. The Japanese approach isn't about resurrecting a dull floor by sanding it. It's about protecting that layer from grit, cleaning almost dry and gently, and nourishing it so you never wear it through and never have to sand it. And once you understand that, you stop attacking your floor and you start preserving it. Here's how it's done, step by step. The first method is the most effective of all and practically free. Keep grit off the floor. Since sand is what sands down the shine, stopping it from reaching the floor is half the battle won. First, and very Japanese, take your shoes off when you come inside. In Japan, homes even have a dedicated space at the entrance, the genkan, meant precisely for leaving your outdoor shoes there. Shoes bring in all the grit and gravel from outside, plus little stones trapped in the sole that scratch like blades. Taking them off eliminates the single biggest source of wear in one move. Second, put mats inside and outside every entrance to catch the dirt before it reaches the good floor. And third, remove dust and grit often with a soft microfiber mop or a soft broom, which sweep without scratching. An important warning about the vacuum. Only use it with the hard floor setting and the rotating brush turned off, because that bristled roller and the hard wheels on many vacuums scratch and scuff the finish. Sweeping gently and often is the most valuable thing you can do for your floor. and pay special attention to the seams between boards and the corners. That's where grit collects and then gets spread across the whole floor with every footstep, so a good sweep reaches those gaps too. Think about it. A single grain of sand under a shoe, repeated thousands of times a day by the whole family, is like running fine sandpaper over the floor nonstop. That's why the wear concentrates in the walking paths. Cutting that sand off at the door is worth more than any product. And if you're already finding this useful, hit subscribe, because what's coming next is where the real difference gets made. The second method is how to clean the floor without damaging it, and it's exactly the principle of zokin gake, almost dry. Water is wood's enemy, so no mopping with a dripping bucket. Use a microfiber mop that's barely damp, with the cloth wrung out very well, so that after you pass it, there's no standing water left on the floor, just the faintest trace that dries in seconds. Always go in the direction of the grain. And wipe up spills immediately. Even clean water, if it sits on the wood for a while, can damage it, so a splash gets dried right away with a cloth. The mistake almost everyone makes is mopping wood like it's tile, with lots of water, leaving puddles that seep into the seams and slowly swell and lift the boards. And a practical tip: divide the floor into sections and dry as you go, without letting any area sit wet and waiting. That way no board ever gets soaked. With wood, less water is always more. The third method is what you have to avoid at all costs, and here we need to bust two very common myths. Myth number 1, the steam mop. A lot of people think steam is the most hygienic, natural way to clean, but on wood, it's one of the most destructive things there is. Steam drives heat and moisture into the floor at the same time. The finish and the wood expand at different rates, and over time, the steam hazes the finish, separates it from the wood, and forces moisture into the cracks. In fact, wood flooring associations advise against steam, and using it usually voids your floor's warranty. Steam is for tile, not for wood. Myth number 2, vinegar. It gets passed around everywhere as a natural cleaner, but vinegar is acidic, and on a polyurethane finish, it slowly etches and dulls it, wash after wash. The same goes for ammonia and strong all-purpose cleaners. They kill the shine. What does work is gentle, barely any water, or a pH-neutral cleaner made specifically for wood. Natural doesn't mean safe. Vinegar is natural, and it still ruins your floor. By the way, all of this is part of one bigger system. If you want the complete Japanese method, with all the secrets for a home that lasts for decades, the book is linked in the description of this video and on the channel. It's there if you want it. Moving on. The fourth method protects the floor from the knocks and scrapes that come from inside the room itself, and it's dirt cheap. First, and one of the most valuable, put stick-on felt pads on the legs of your chairs, tables, and furniture. Dragging a chair with no felt is one of the #1 causes of ugly scratches. A few cents worth of felt pads prevents the whole problem. Second, put rugs or runners in the highest traffic areas, like the entryway, the hallways, or in front of the sink, so the rug takes the wear instead of the floor. Third, if you have pets, keep their nails trimmed, because they scratch the finish when they run. And fourth, watch out for the sun. The ultraviolet light coming through the windows slowly bleaches and yellows the wood over the years, and unevenly, so use curtains or blinds during the sunniest hours and move your rugs around now and then, so the floor ages evenly. A useful note about scratches: they're not all the same. The shallow ones, the ones that only graze the shine layer, can often be hidden with a good polish or a product suited to your finish. But the ones that reach the wood are another story, which is exactly why it's so worth preventing them with the felt pads and by keeping sand out, because a scratch that never happens is the only one you never have to repair. The fifth method is the real alternative to sanding and refinishing: nourish and buff instead of stripping away wood. Instead of sanding the floor every so often, which shortens its life, the idea is to feed and polish that finish layer so it stays alive and shiny. But here, pay attention, because this is where most people go wrong, and it's time to be honest. The product you use has to match your floor's type of finish. There are two big families. Floors sealed with varnish or polyurethane have a hard, plastic-like layer on top. These are kept up by buffing and, at most, a polish made specifically for that kind of floor. And floors with an oil or wax finish, very common in traditional wood and in many modern floors too, are nourished differently, by reapplying oil or wax every so often. And that really is the literal secret of decades with no sanding, because each application replenishes the finish from within. The serious mistake is crossing them. Putting an oil product on a varnish-sealed floor or a water-based cleaner on an oiled floor can ruin the finish. There's a simple test to find out which you have. Drop a bit of water in an out-of-the-way corner. If the drop beads up on the surface, your floor is sealed. If the wood drinks it in and darkens, it's a porous, oil-finished floor. Identify your finish first, then nourish it with what it needs. And now, right before the most important method of all, the one that turns all of this into a floor that shines for decades. If you still haven't subscribed, this is the moment, because this last point is what separates a floor that lasts a lifetime from one you have to sand every few years. And it isn't a product or a machine. It's turning all of this into a consistent routine, which is exactly what makes those temple floors gleam after centuries. The people whose floors always look flawless aren't the ones who do aggressive, deep cleans now and then. They're the ones who do a little, often. In practice, it's simple. A quick pass to remove dust and grit almost daily, a barely damp microfiber wipe once a week, and every so often nourishing and buffing with whatever product suits your finish. Nothing aggressive, no expensive machines, small gestures repeated over time. That's the whole secret of the decades. It isn't intensity, it's consistency. And there's something almost magical about it. Every time you pass a soft cloth over the wood, you're not just cleaning it, you're polishing it a little, the way it's always been done with the Japanese cloth. That repeated, gentle contact, year after year, is exactly what gives temple floors that deep glow no fresh coat of varnish can imitate. It isn't a product, it's time and gentleness built up. Add the habit that protects everything, taking your shoes off at home, and you'll have a floor that stays alive on its own. Small and consistent beats, aggressive and occasional, every time. And on top of it, you save yourself the fortune and the mess of having to sand. Now for the honest part, because this channel doesn't sell miracles. First, about never sanding again. If your floor is already worn down to bare wood or has deep damage, it may need a sand and refinish this one time. What this method does is keep you from getting to that point and from having to sand over and over, because a floor can only take a limited number of sandings in its whole life. Second, about no chemicals. Water and microfiber do most of the work, but a pH-neutral cleaner made specifically for wood is perfectly fine and sometimes necessary for stuck-on grime. The idea is to avoid the harsh, damaging stuff, not to swear off every product. And third, every floor and every finish is different, so always test any new product in a hidden spot before using it out in the open. It's the whole set of gentle gestures, done consistently, that keeps a floor shining for decades. And even though this topic seems harmless, there's a safety part genuinely worth respecting, especially with the oils. Pay attention to this, because it's no joke. Rags soaked in oil or wood products can catch fire on their own. The oils used to nourish wood generate heat as they dry and oxidize, and if you leave the used rags balled up in the trash or piled together, that heat can build up until it ignites with no one lighting anything. There are real fires started exactly this way. Never pile up oily rags. Spread them out fully, open outdoors so they dry completely, or put them in a metal container with water and a lid before disposing of them as the product directs. Second, watch out for slipperiness. Oils, waxes, and polishes leave the floor slick, so buff off the excess, bring up the shine, and don't walk on it until it's dry. Third, never mix cleaning products with each other, not even the natural ones. Bleach with vinegar or ammonia releases toxic gases. Use any product with ventilation, and keep everything away from children and pets. And it's worth being clear about why the whole philosophy here is to care and preserve rather than attack and renovate, because it isn't only about looks or money. A floor cared for gently keeps its wood, its shine, and its character for generations, uses zero harsh products, and saves you the huge cost and the dust and chaos of sanding and refinishing every few years. A shiny floor isn't the goal in itself. It's the sign that its protective layer is still alive because you've never abused it. Preserve, don't renovate. So here, specifically, is what to do this weekend, starting with what costs nothing. First, do the water drop test in a corner to find out whether your floor is sealed or oil finished, because everything else depends on it. Bring in the shoes-off habit and put mats at the entrances. It's the most valuable change of all. Remove dust and grit with a soft mop and do a barely damp microfiber pass, no steam and no vinegar. Put felt pads on your furniture legs and a rug in the high-traffic areas. And when it's time, nourish and buff with the product that matches your finish, spreading any oily rags out flat when you're done so they can't catch fire. You start with protection and the free habits, add the gentle cleaning, and turn the whole thing into a few minutes of care. And if you want the rest of the Japanese methods for making your home last decades, they're all in the book in the description. So, to pull it all together, because the complete system is simple to remember, keep grit out by taking your shoes off and sweeping gently, because sand is what grinds away the shine. Clean, almost dry, with a wrung-out microfiber, the way of the Japanese cloth. Never use steam or vinegar or harsh chemicals on the wood. Protect the floor with felt pads, rugs, and curtains. And nourish the finish with the product that matches it, instead of sanding. You care a little and often, and the floor stays shiny on its own. And with that, you don't just bring the shine back for one day. You keep that warm, gleaming floor for decades, never sanding it, and without a single harsh chemical. And if you found the floor tips useful, wait until you see what the Japanese method does with those wood pieces of furniture marked up with water rings and scratches. In the next video, you'll see how to erase watermarks and scratches from wood with things you already have at home, no sanding and nothing to buy. See you in the next one.